When Gene Simmons and Lars Ulrich both name Deep Purple as the greatest live rock band of all time, it makes you stop and think. Not because those guys never agree on anything, but because Deep Purple doesn't probably strike most modern listeners or even most classic rock fans as being one of the great live spectacles. After all, they didn't use costumes or explosions or any huge screens, just 5 musicians walking on stage. But somehow they seem to always overpower any room they played in. And today I want to talk about why Deep Purple's live greatness still matters and why it might actually be harder to do what they did than what many modern bands do now. So, Deep Purple were a band that lived or died on musicianship, interaction, and riff. And that's something Gene Simmons and Lars, two very different performers, both recognize instantly. Because if your band can't actually play, no amount of fire, video screens, or choreography is going to save you night after night. And Deep Purple didn't just play their songs, they reconstructed them, they almost rediscovered them live. Deep Purple's show was not a recital, it was a launch pad. So Gene Simmons specifically points to Ritchie Blackmore as a charismatic figure on the stage, explaining that he felt Blackmore's on-stage acrobatics were a match for any kind of pyrotechnics or lights or stage props. And Lars went on to say that each member of the band had a special kind of charisma, and that the interaction between each of the members of the classic lineup is what made their live shows so exciting. And so, what's really happening on stage with Purple is real-time musicianship, and that can be terrifying because there's no safety net record. And this is what Gene Simmons is driving at, even if he doesn't phrase it that way. When he talks about Ritchie Blackmore's acrobatics, the reason the acrobatics are amazing is because Blackmore can do them and still play the intricate parts that are necessary to pull off Purple's music. And this brings me to my main point of the video. A lot of live shows are incredibly impressive, and this includes anything that you want to mention about Kiss. But they're also incredibly controlled. They're based around click tracks, backing tracks, pre-programmed cues, and there are very good reasons for that because big tours are expensive, expectations are high, and mistakes these days go viral. So I'm not saying that makes modern bands bad. I am saying that it makes what Deep Purple did way harder to replicate nowadays, if not basically impossible. Because Deep Purple lived in a lane that most bands will never even try to drive in, which is uncertainty. Now, this is where I think Lars comes in. Lars has always understood that live music isn't about perfection, it's about impact, and Metallica shows work because the band pushes forward together, even when it's sometimes messy. So you can hear it in Metallica a little bit, especially in the early days, their willingness to strut and the refusal to not match the moment of the live performance. But Purple had a secret weapon, which is they listened to each other on stage, they responded in real time, and they left space. This is why their live recordings don't feel dated. They feel human. When Gene Simmons and Lars call Deep Purple one of the greatest live bands ever, they're not just being nostalgic, they're recognizing a standard, and one that I feel might be quickly vanishing. A standard where live musicianship was a show. Risk was part of the show, and the band trusted itself enough to let things unfold. Maybe that's why Deep Purple still sounds dangerous live, even this day, with different members and decades later. If you saw Purple live or if a particular performance changed how you hear the band, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And if you didn't see them live, what do you think about Gene Simmons and Lars taking Deep Purple as one of the greatest live bands in history? Wouldn't expect that coming from Simmons myself, given the fact that Kiss is so prone to all of the things that Purple didn't need in order to make their live shows exciting. Let me know what you think down in the comments.
Music Guru here, asking you to help us on our march to 10,000 subscribers.